So we need to get across this river now. It's a pretty big river. And normally the local marina will shuttle hikers across, but the marina is closed on Mondays. So now we just wait and hope a boater comes by and flag them down. So shouldn't be too bad, but I say that as we've already been waiting here for about 2 hours and no one has come by yet. We did it! Got a ride! So we were sitting across on the river for a couple hours, just waiting for a boat to cross, and first boat! They pulled over, gave us a ride. We had to get off in the water here. It's not too deep, but it was up to my knees at least, or a little bit past. So wet feet, but hey, can't complain too much. The alternative is just waiting another night in the town of St. Mark's until the marina opens the next day. Or, I don't know, road walking around the river, but that'd be pretty far. So we're in St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge, and while we're here, we're gonna play a little game called How Many Alligators? So far, this is 2. Take your guesses now as to how many you think we will see.
So St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge is one of my favorite places on the entire Florida Trail. It's maybe not the most exciting trail, because a lot of times you're just walking grassy roads, but when it comes to the wildlife here, it's really unbelievable, and especially so for those who are interested in birds. Because we are so close to the Gulf of Mexico, maybe just 2 miles or 3 miles off to our south, a lot of coastal birds come in to wade around looking for food in these shallow saltwater wetlands. And then because of how the wildlife refuge is set up, they have all of the salt water on one side of it, and then there's a lot of brackish water and fresh water on the other side. So you really get a good variety of animals that like one or the other. So this can really be a birder's paradise. I know that there's even a rare flamingo, just one of them, that lives here, that can be spotted around the refuge from time to time. Of course, you're very, very likely to see wild pigs here. We immediately upon entering the refuge saw a bobcat, which I wasn't quick enough to be able to film.
That's not an alligator, but that is an otter. So that's pretty cool. Is it 2 of them? Is it something eating an otter? Maybe it's 2 otters mating. I think that's what it is. We heard this sound that sounded like a really aggravated cat. And it's some otters. So weird. Alligator number 5. Alligator number 6.
And for me, the most fun animal that you're going to see just an absolute ton of in this place is the alligator. For the southbound hiker, this is the first place you're really going to see a lot of them. And for the northbound hiker, this would be the last place where you're going to see a lot of them. I know on my last hikes, I had seen hundreds in St. Mark's. Now, given all the cold weather, it's hard to say if we're going to see those kinds of numbers here today and tomorrow. But it is an absolute guarantee. If you want to see a lot of them, then this is the place. So overall, St. Mark's is a really wonderful area to hike through. And if you have binoculars, even better. St. Mark's is also home to one of the best campsites on the entire Florida Trail, with the most beautiful view, the most interesting spot. So it's definitely a place to really take your time and try and seek out this campsite so that you too can stay there. Now when it comes to campsites, far down south, there's a lot of really wonderful ones too, with incredible oak hammocks just stretching far above you, where the light shines through the Spanish moss and just lights up the area in such a golden way. But when it comes to the Ring Dike Levee campsite in St. Mark's, it's kind of hard to beat. Just having a small saltwater pond off to one side, and then looking off to the Gulf of Mexico on the other. Wading birds out in the water, palm trees on your little island. It's really an incredible spot, and definitely a top 3 campsite of the entire trail. Now there is one problem here with this camp spot and with St. Mark's in general, and that is saltwater intrusion. About 10 years ago, when I first hiked through here, there was a lot of the water sources you could actually drink. They were fresh water. It was fine. But now, these days, and for this entire stretch, the only water you're going to see is either salt water or very, very brackish water.
We will resume the alligator counting today. We just saw number 10, but it went under the water, so you'll have to trust us on this one. So, alligator 10. For the record, Sprocket guessed 17, and I guessed 36. Maybe I was a little optimistic, given it's really cold out. In the cold, alligators will make like little alligator caves, underwater dens, and they'll basically like hibernate in there for a few days until it's warm again. So I'm guessing most of the alligators I was hoping to see are all in miniature hibernation right now, hiding from the cold and waiting for sunnier days. So that is a barred owl. I feel like seeing an owl in the day is pretty difficult sometimes. At night in Florida, it feels like we always hear them, multiple owls every night. But in the day, almost never. Very cool. So it's the end of St. Mark's. If you guess 10 alligators, you win. You're a big winner, much more so than me. Sprocket was pretty close, 17. I guess it's that cold weather scared away all them gators, so that's too bad. So as always, the Florida Trail goes through one wooded section, one wildlife refuge, and then a little road section, like we're on now. And then you enter another wildlife section. So after St. Mark's, there's like a 4 or 5 mile road walk for us to skate. And I guess the upside of this is there's almost always a resupply option, a convenience store on these little roads. So skating some roads. As it turns out, you can skateboard some dirt roads. And in this case, it's even better than a lot of paved roads, which is kind of ridiculous. This next section we're about to enter in a few miles is the Ocilla River. It's one of my favorite sections of the Florida Trail. It's fairly short, about 18 miles or something like that, but I very much so love it. I guess it's characterized by a big river that disappears under the earth. So just out of nowhere, there will be big sinkholes and things. And giant river just disappears into the ground, and then it pops up over here, and then down over there, and up way over there. And so I think that's kind of cool. So this is the Ocilla River, and it's flowing that way, just into that wall of nothing. So I guess that's one thing I love about this section, is just the river kind of disappears. It goes underground right there. And actually last night we slept right on top of it, essentially. But this area is full of like sinkholes and all sorts of stuff. So it's cool the river just pops up randomly and disappears randomly. That's a really beautiful section. We're kind of getting close to an area that was damaged a lot earlier this year, or last year, by 2 hurricanes that just slammed this part of Florida back to back. And I'm hoping the Ocilla River section was kind of unscathed, but I know before long we're going to be going through hurricane damaged areas, and it is what it is, you know. That's the way of Florida. A lot of hurricanes and not typically a lot of snow, but you never know. Maybe things will change into the future, less hurricanes, and this trail will live on forever. Dog just wants a friend. We made it. It's the most famous Pepsi machine in the entire US. There's never been a more famous machine that serves Pepsi out there. So the most famous Pepsi machine in all the land, Pepsi machine on the Florida Trail, in the middle of the largest road walk on the entire Florida Trail. It's over 40 miles, but somewhere around the middle, there's a Pepsi machine right out by the road to make your road walking days a lot easier and nicer. Definitely a legendary, weird stop. We have started the longest road walk on the Florida Trail. I'll save you the trouble of actually having to walk it yourself, and I'll save you the trouble of having to view it yourself. But it's about 50 miles, and it's like 50-50, some paved, some dirt. And yeah, it kind of sucks, 50 miles. Nowhere to really camp that's like legal, other than by calling and asking churches if you can sleep in their yards. So, no good. But this road travels between the Suwannee River and the Ocilla River section, and the skateboards is made a lot nicer because we can just skate on paved bits, which is awesome. You know, hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, this road will no longer exist. In 2020, I believe, a proposed reroute for this entire stretch was approved, and hopefully sooner than later will be built and will become the real trail. The reroute would continue following the Suwannee River south a bit, maybe a slightly different river, but roughly the same kind of style. And then it would follow along the coast for like 60 miles and connect with St. Mark's. And it would just be absolutely awesome, I think. There'd be trouble with getting fresh water because it's through, like, it's on the coast, saltwater marshes and stuff. But, you know, to me, it almost feels better than a 50-mile road walk, so. done it. Finished the big road walk. And still so weird to me, you can skate some dirt roads. It's not perfect, but it's pretty interesting. So last night we stayed with Trail Angel, Shayna. Thank you so much, Shayna. It's much appreciated on this big long road walk as I get halted by the dirt here. It's like so nice to have people that will let you camp in their yard, you know, give you some snacks, let you have a nice fire. So right now we have about, I think 4 more miles on just this dirt road. Shouldn't see any traffic. And then we are on to the Suwannee River. So made it to the end of the road walk, and I think now we're seeing some of the hurricane damage. This is the trail. Can even see the orange blaze on the other side of this big tree. So I guess we'll find out, huh? It usually means go left, but sometimes it can mean go straight a little bit and then left. Sometimes it can mean go left like 50 feet before the markings. I'll look over here. So the Suwannee River is, I think, a favorite of most Florida Trail thru hikers and Florida hikers in general. But unfortunately, this area has been hit with some really heavy hurricane damage. I think last year they got 3 hurricanes, and at least one of those was like a category 4 hurricane. So just direct hit on this area. So it is unbelievable that this area got hit 3 times last year. And I think the Suwannee River took quite a bit of that. So we're gonna see. I've heard that the Florida Trail Association has already come in and done a lot of maintenance. Who's to say? Is the river still gonna be as beautiful as it was? I think so. But it's definitely gonna be interesting to see some of the damage. So we've been doing a combination of the trail and like dirt roads or equestrian trails, like for horses and things. So I think we missed the trail crew because they're just back behind us when we were on a horse trail. But hopefully seeing these trucks means that this next section will be nice and clean and maintained and stuff like that. So anyway, thank you very much, Florida Trail Association. Sorry we just barely missed you, but excited for some nice sections to come. I'm seeing now that all these trucks have like Florida Trail stickers and things. So sweet. Yeah, we could hear like a chainsaw off in the distance, you know, and we figured that that was a good sign. So far, this section, I mean, just seeing the damage surrounding is insanity. But, you know, the trail itself is at least free of debris and stuff, and we can walk freely now. At least that's the hope. Very bumpy. Mm-hmm. Many things. What do you think it's up to? Sure does blend in very well. So that is one of the largest cypress trees in the entire state of Florida. So we are along Holton Creek, and it's really hard to get a scale of this thing. But But you can see those little knobbles right at its base. I don't even think I, standing next to it, would be as big as those little things. That's one of my favorite trees on this whole trail. I'm glad it's doing good despite the hurricanes. With all this hurricane damage of recent and all these blowdowns and fallen trees and things, I hope that the trees that did survive are just gonna get that much bigger and that much stronger. You know, because now there's no fight for sunlight. You know, less trees that remain will get more of the resources. So I'm hopeful for this area, but it's pretty sad. You know, I've hiked the Suwannee River section, I don't know, I think like 5 times before. And it is, in many areas, almost unrecognizable. Almost unrecognizable. It's very sad. So, I'm really hopeful it'll bounce back. In, I don't know, maybe the next time I hike this trail in 4 years. Because I think, you know, there's tons of stuff still standing. It's not like the hurricane just took out every tree ever. It's just right now there's a lot of debris. So, like, look at all this debris. Whereas this trail, not very long ago, was just open and green and lush and everything like that. And now this trail's like a different world. And to be honest, this is one of the better sections. Many sections have just been wall to wall blowdowns and just, you know, can't even see through. It's so thick.
So despite the hurricanes, the great news is that it's really only that first section, up until the Hippie Bridge, that was severely damaged. And everything after that just proceeded to get better and better, more beautiful, and just like how it was all the other times that I've hiked through this section before. With green leaves, with massive, old-growth, towering oak trees.
Yes?
My skateboard needs packing.
Does it?
Yeah. You are the packer.
Huh. Okay.
The most beautiful of all rivers flowing right beside you as you hike along its bluffs. Wonderful little campsites along the beaches. And I am very happy to say that it is as beautiful as it ever was. It was very much sad to see that first section and the shape that it was in, and I definitely feared for the worst when it came to the other like 40 or 50 miles along the Suwannee River. So in the end, I'm glad that those sections were spared from the hurricanes. And also, I have to give just the utmost amount of respect and props and thank yous to the Florida Trail Association, to the local chapter, to the main association out of Gainesville, Florida, and to all the other volunteers that came from across the entire state to try and get this section of trail back into its normal shape. I know that this has been something of like a 2-year effort, where for many, many, many months, they are out there every single day with large groups of people, with chainsaws, with lawnmowers, with clippers, with just to get this trail beautiful for people to enjoy. So thank you, Florida Trail Association. And for anyone that lives in the state, consider joining the Florida Trail Association or consider joining on maintenance days. Personally, I used to volunteer for my local chapter down in the Loxahatchee area, and it was always a ton of fun. I made a lot of really great friends, And I was super happy to be able to make the trail not just more beautiful for others, but to make the trails that I loved more beautiful for myself to then go and enjoy. To paint the blazes and to make sure that everything was just in tip-top shape was extremely rewarding for me. And I highly recommend anyone across the entire country, across the entire world, get out with your local organizations and help them. Because ultimately, the majority of this work, the vast majority of this work, is from volunteers. And it's one thing to go out and enjoy it yourself, and it's another thing to help out. So the Suwannee River for decades now has been the top spot that I would recommend, that anyone else would recommend if you're looking for a section hike on the Florida Trail to do. It's going to be more than 60 miles from point to point, where you're hiking across just this massive, beautiful river, along the sides of it, up and over the banks and the ginormous hills, sometimes so high you're above the trees below you, and it creates a really interesting view that you just don't get in a lot of places in Florida. So despite the hurricanes, I still feel like the Suwannee River is an absolute top destination when it comes to hiking in Florida. Now at this point, we're about 550 miles into our southbound hike across the state. We're just about nearing the halfway point of this entire trail. And I think out of those 550 miles, we've skateboarded about 160 of them. Now the question still remains, are the skateboards worth it? I really still don't know. I do know that every time we are coming up to some kind of pavement, whether that's a road or a bike path or anything out there, I know both me and my partner are super excited for it. And when we do get on it, we have a lot of fun. Now, of course, the problem is just the weight and the size and the bulk and the weird shape of the skateboard. And that has definitely not ceased to stop bothering either of us. And we are both still, even at the halfway point, struggling to find how to carry the skateboard best. Because ultimately, we're carrying it for about 80% of this entire hike. Still, it's kind of a fun thing. So, roughly halfway on the Florida Trail. And at this point, we've been traveling east for most of our journey, and now, finally, we are curving around the Big Bend. We will begin heading south. South into the swamps, towards the Everglades. The environment is going to start changing as we head closer and closer towards the equator.
So we're nearing the halfway point of the Florida Trail, and actually for the first time since we started this hike, we are actually going to start heading south. Florida is in, I guess, a big upside down L shape, and for the past 3 weeks or something, we have been just heading east from the most northwestern tip of Florida. Now we're heading east and finally south. So I feel like while most trails just travel north and south, the Florida Trail does a little bit of everything. But definitely a big giant milestone to cross the Big Bend, to finish the Suwannee River, and to finally be heading south towards the Everglades. So traveling in this direction, I feel like the scenery is going to change a little bit more drastically because temperatures are getting hotter and we are just heading closer and closer and closer towards the equator. So a lot more swamps, a lot more tropical, and definitely some new stuff. New plants, new animals, we hope. So we're always looking out for them. So we are saying goodbye to the Suwannee River, entering a new section here. Now we are heading south into Ocilla Northeast. So a brand new section trail.